welcome to the show.
Hey.
It's such a pleasure.
Welcome.
It's such a pleasure to finally talk to you in person. We were talking a little bit before. So the way you and I know each other is through 75 Hard. And I don't think we've ever talked about 75 Hard on the show. So for just kind of like the quick 30 seconds, this is literally probably the toughest program I've ever gone through. It is a 4-phase program. It will completely challenge your mindset and mental capacity and just make you realize like you are completely unstoppable. At least that's what it did for me. But you and I know each other through that program. So whether you knew it or not, you were my 75 Hard buddy. Like that's what I used to call you in my head, because you and I started on the same day. We connected through Instagram, like, I don't know, like maybe a couple weeks into it. And realized we were on the same day. So like I would always see like your daily postings and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, she's still doing it. Let's go, girl. So tell me about like what 75 Hard did for you.
So it was kind of a catalyst into realizing what I am capable of, because before I'd start something and then something would come up and I would, I'll restart tomorrow.
Yeah.
And with this program, there's so much accountability and there's so much connection to other people like you. And having that community, even though it's small and it's hidden to the people who don't know anything about it, it's large once you're in there. It's
getting bigger. It's crazy how much it's been growing. Like I'm still doing the phases. Well, I've finished the first phase and like I have stuff to do the second phase, but like it's crazy how big that thing's gotten. And like, so the guy that created it, his name's Andy Frisella. He's the CEO or First Form. And, he said something like at the beginning of the year, like 60,000 people have gone through it. Like they've been somehow able to figure out that number. That's crazy. Like he just started like a year ago and 60,000 people have already done it. That's insane. Like what was the biggest lesson you took from that whole program? Or at least the first part of it?
The first part of what I learned?
Yeah. I mean, what have you learned so far? Like what's the biggest thing you've learned?
Just that I can do literally whatever I set my mind to.
Yep.
Anything. Like it doesn't matter.
It does. Yeah. Yeah. The big thing for me was time. Like all my lies about how much time I didn't have. Like there's such a lie. There's such a lie. Yeah.
Yeah. You do have time for that. You just got to make it.
Yeah. You got to prioritize what you want. So a couple weeks ago, you had posted something on Instagram, and this is what prompted me to want to bring you on the show. You posted a picture of yourself. There was a side by side of you in 2015 and then you in 2020. And you had mentioned that you had that there's been such a transition between those two people. So tell me a little bit about Emily in 2015.
So Emily in 2015 was carrying so much weight of just years of anger and resentment and frustration and sadness and all of these emotions that I wasn't properly dealing with. I was going to see doctors and they would put me on antidepressants, and I had really bad nightmares all the time. So no figure, I was holding on to everything. Yeah. And so I was put on medication to stop the nightmares, and just like every way that my body was trying to like create an outlet for these things that I was suppressing, I would get another prescription to bury it and bury it and bury it. And so I kind of just became this shell of a person that felt nothing, but was still holding it all in there. Just because you don't feel it doesn't mean it isn't there.
Yeah.
That's what that Emily was.
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing that people do, is like they end up burying feelings maybe, and they don't realize they buried it or distracted themselves from it. So what kind of things were you burying at the time?
So I guess let me go back to 2011. That was when I was in my first marriage. I was a new mom. I had a 1-year-old. I was also a full-time student. I was going to school for architecture. I was also working full-time. My mom was living with me and my ex-husband at the time as our child care provider. And one day I woke up and I was getting ready for school, and I went and knocked on her bedroom door to give my son to her so I could leave for the day. And I found her in her room dead. Mm-hmm. And that was the day that my whole life imploded. Everything just crashed down around me, and there was nothing I could do about it.
Right.
So, once she died, I had to drop out of school. I had to leave my job. Obviously, I wasn't going to live in the home where she died, so I lost my home. Me and my ex-husband ended up moving to a town where I had nobody. And just to go from this person that was working towards their future in such a forward motion to being this person that was stripped of everything that they had, I lost myself.
Sure. So your mother's death was sudden, and then it was like she wasn't sick or anything, or had been.
No. So, well, yes and no. My mom had an eating disorder for 30 years, one of which was bulimia. She was also anorexic, but bulimia was the big one. And all that damage to her heart, in retrospect, it's honestly shocking that she lived to be 51, considering that she did so much damage to her body. But at the same time, the weeks prior, she would wake up and go biking. And she was an active, happy-ish person. So yeah, her death kind of came as like, whoa, okay. Yeah. It was a lot.
So it sounds like it threw kind of your life in a tailspin a bit. And
for sure.
So tell me a little bit about that tailspin. Like you said you dropped out of school, you had to move, you went to a place where you didn't really have anybody. What was happening internally, mentally with you that made you feel like I get the like moving part and everything. I get all that part, but like, why drop out of school? Like, what was the thought process behind that?
So my mom was our live-in nanny.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And so once I lost her, I had no one to take care of my son. We couldn't afford daycare.
Right,
so
right.
I fell back into that stay-at-home mom role, which I enjoyed. Right. However, I always had big dreams for myself. So to see those shatter in front of me and to not see a way to have that back.
Right.
Because it wasn't feasible. I lost it. And shortly after, side note, that school closed and they were all non-transferable credits.
Oh, interesting.
So for years, people would tell me, why don't you just go back? And I'm not going to start from scratch.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's really interesting. So what happened as you were kind of figuring out your way? So you said that was 2011. So what was happening between 2011 and 2015? Like, what was, I guess my question is more around like, what happened in 2015 that you used that as like as a benchmark for yourself?
So that was the year my son turned 5, and I didn't want him to have memories of me like that. And I can remember thinking back on like, okay, what are the memories that impacted me as a kid? When did they start? And that was about when they started. And so to look at him and to see like, okay, everything that I'm doing right now is imprinting on his mind.
Yeah.
And it just made me change every single thing about myself because I didn't have a choice. At that point, it wasn't about me. It wasn't about if I was sad. It wasn't about if I was mad. It was about, do I continue the cycle or do I break it? And I chose to break it because I refuse to have a son that is emotionally broken starting from the age of 5. I'm not going to do it.
Right. So what were the things that you started to like fix? Fix it. I don't know if that's the right word, but what are the things you started to work on about yourself at that point?
My first step was starting to cut out all the medication that I was on because it was just making me numb. And I knew that I couldn't work through anything if I couldn't feel anything.
Right.
So I was on 5 different medications, and I started one at a time, cutting it down to nothing, and the next one cutting it down to nothing, and the next one cutting it down to nothing. And it's a long process. It took me about a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I don't think we've ever talked about medications on the show before. So what, I personally have never taken any, right? So what does the medication do for you? Does it numb you? Is that kind of what it does?
Yeah. So antidepressants, for the most part, for me, and I can't speak for everybody because for some people they are life-changing in a positive way.
Yeah.
For me, they took my lows and they brought them up here, but they also took my highs and they brought them down here. So there was kind of neutral feeling of nothingness.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't sad, but I also didn't have joy.
Right.
It was this feeling of, okay, this is life, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't turn one down without turning the other down. It's like the balance, right? Yeah.
The dials, they coincide with each other.
Yeah. If you turn one, the other one turns two. Yeah. That's crazy. So mentally you started weaning yourself off the medications, which is great. Like what were you doing to like supplement that though? Like, cause I'm imagining like if you're taking yourself off the medications, you're also doing something else to kind of counterbalance it. Were you like meditating at that point, anything like that to help you like balance it out?
No. So at that point I was doing, it all in a very unhealthy way because I really didn't know better. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I used alcohol as a big crutch at that point because it wasn't something that would stay in my system for a significant amount of time. Sure. So it was, if I was feeling really uncomfortable and, the withdrawals were a little bit too much, honestly, I would pour myself a glass of wine and I would be okay. And that was awful. And I know it. And it's bad, but that was what I did to get off the medication, and it worked, unfortunately, for me, and I don't recommend it for anybody.
Yeah. No, I mean, but it's the retrospective, right? Looking back on it, you kind of realize like maybe that wasn't the best idea to do. But
oh, for sure.
Yeah, alcohol is just another numbing mechanism too, though, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And alcohol is a depressant, so I was literally fighting myself as I was trying to improve myself. It's wild.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the weight part of the journey, because I've seen pictures of you, from that time frame, and I see you now and everything. So I know there was a huge transformation there. Like, were you battling like being healthy, eating healthy back then too?
Yeah. Well, my background, even from a child, my dad was always very health conscious, and we never were allowed to drink soda. And I was always raised in I was always athletic. And so my weight problems came on with the antidepressants. So, and that happens to a lot of women. That's how their bodies react. You get on antidepressants, you gain weight. It's one of the side effects.
Sure.
And then with the antidepressants and then the alcohol, it kind of just, I ballooned literally with the problem. The problem ballooned, and so did Emily. So and I did turn to a lot of food that I shouldn't have to cope, which again, I think a lot of women do. It's comforting. Yeah.
So as you were coming off the medication, then was the weight coming off then too, or were you like starting to exercise more and everything too?
Yeah. So the weight kind of came off really rapidly at first, and it would halt. I would gain it back, and I wasn't really focusing on my weight health so much as I was focusing on my mental health.
Yeah.
And so the weight kind of came slowly and then fast.
Sure.
But once I stopped drinking completely and I started really focusing on healing, that's when the weight disappeared.
Interesting.
Like that overnight.
Yeah. So tell me about healing. What does healing mean to you, or what did it mean to you?
Healing for me meant forgiving my mom for not taking care of herself long enough to take care of me, long enough to be a grandmother. I held on to so much anger about that. Like, why couldn't she just take care of herself? Why couldn't she just be healthy for the people around her?
Yeah.
And the anger towards my ex-husband, you know, why did he leave me when I needed him the most? Why did he leave me when I was hurting the most? And the answer to that is easy. It's because we were both so young. My mom died when I was 23. He was the same age, me and him the same age. So we were so young, and we were trying to navigate not only death, but loss of so many things. And me going through this deep depression and resentment, because while my life collapsed around me, my ex-husband continued on with the same job. He kept going to the gym every day. He never missed a beat. And while I became this recluse in my house as a stay-at-home mom, his life continued forward as though nothing happened. And so I became angry at him.
Yeah.
So healing for me also involved forgiving him. And that's so important. Forgiveness, like the more anger you hold on to, you're not hurting the person you're angry at.
Right.
They don't even know you're angry.
Yeah.
You're only hurting yourself. So I had to forgive him and move on. And it's kind of ironic because I got remarried in 2013, but I was still hanging on to these feelings towards him because I never had a chance to process it.
Right.
And so that also meant my current marriage improved. Along with me forgiving my ex-husband, I was able to refocus my energy on the marriage that I'm supposed to be nurturing.
Right.
So that was key.
What did forgiving look like? What did that process entail for you?
Telling him that I understand and that I get it and that we were young, and I don't have resentment or frustrations towards him. I have reservations towards trusting him
Sure.
ever again, but I don't have, there's no anger there. There's no room for anger. We share a child together. It has to be a nurturing environment.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. What about with your mom though? How did you process through that?
It's hard to forgive someone that's dead.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I could sit and have a conversation with the urn, you know?
Yeah.
But that's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So honestly, my forgiveness with her is still a work in progress.
Sure. Yeah. No,
There's days where I try to understand, but then I look at my son and I look at how much he means to me, and then my understanding for her goes right out the window, because I'm like, how in the hell did she do what she did?
Yeah.
Looking at me as a child, how the selfishness,
Sure.
you know, I'll never understand.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I don't have to understand. It's not my job to understand everything about other people. All I can do is not hang on to that shitload of crap that came along with it.
Yeah. I think, so as part of my journey, I had to do some forgiving too. And I think part of it for me was learning how to let go of expectations and not expect a response to it. So like the closure itself was like within, right? Like that's where you find closure. In my opinion, you find closure within. In you, it starts with you, and it's letting go of expectations. Forgiving somebody who has passed away has been interestingly difficult, because like you can't talk to that person, you know, and that's where it's like, how do you get it all out and and you really not going to get a response, right? Because you're looking for that response, you're looking for that feedback, like tell me what you were thinking kind of deal, right? And it's just not there. And it takes a long time. It really does.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to get there. But you got to go deep within. That's the key, is once you get within.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I don't think that's what people realize. Like, they expect it to be external, like that closure. They expect it to be external. Mm-hmm. I just want to have that one conversation, or just that I want to understand this one thing. And it's like, no, it's all inside. You got to figure it out inside. Yeah. So, you mentioned breaking patterns, and you mentioned your son and making sure like he doesn't have some of the emotional baggage that goes along with this. And I mean, obviously there's tons of research behind we are who we are because of where we came from, because of our parents and our generational kind of things. What is breaking patterns still something that's conscious for you? Like, do you still think about that now?
Every day.
No, interesting. So tell me about that. Like, what are the thoughts around that?
So I think a big part of who I've become as a parent is understanding all of my flaws and knowing that even though I've made all these changes, I still fuck up.
Yeah.
We all do as parents.
Yeah, for sure.
Daily. And so what I've made a conscious effort to do with my son, which I never had as a child, is I will apologize so fast.
Sure.
If I know that I just raised my voice for literally no reason other than the fact that maybe I'm a little tired, I will turn my happy ass around and I will walk up to my 9-year-old and I will say, you know what? You didn't deserve that.
No.
I am so sorry.
No.
You did nothing to warrant that. That was all on me, not on you.
Yeah.
And so I'm taking that burden off of him of like, why did I just get yelled at? Well, now he knows that he got yelled at because his mom was a little frustrated with herself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's it.
And do you explain that to him at night? Like, explain like where it came from versus it not being about him, really?
What do you mean?
Like, so you can tell him, look, I'm sorry, I just had a rough day. But do you explain why, like, what was the rough day?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's super important as a parent. So they understand, like, yeah, you can have bad days too. And here's the reason why you have bad days. And that's why hopefully it ingrains in them, like, it's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to, and as long as you're saying you're sorry and you understand why it really happened that way, like that's a huge self-awareness lesson for them, that if you keep doing it consistently, it reinforces that with them.
Yeah. It's funny because it's rolled over into his behavior, because yesterday I came home from work and he had a whole sheet of sentences written out saying, I will not lie anymore. I will not lie anymore. And I'm like, what is this? And my wife was like, well, he can explain it to you. And he didn't necessarily lie, but he said something believing it was true, which a lot of kids do.
Yeah.
And then there was that realization that, an hour or so later of like, that wasn't true.
Yeah.
And so he went to her and he was like, oh, I lied. My dog is having a puppy dream. He went to her and told her. So, she had him write out the sentences. And when I got home and I asked him about it, he was like, well, he explained the situation. I said, well, I mean, I don't really know if that's necessarily lying. Maybe it's kind of okay. And he's like, is it though?
Interesting.
Is it?
Yeah. That's interesting.
Well, maybe not. Maybe you need to be more aware of what you're saying. You're right. You're probably correct here.
And what an awesome lesson as a 9-year-old to have that self-awareness. That's so good.
I know.
Yeah. Like, how many 9-year-olds, like I can tell you, my 11-year-old son, there's no way, like, unless we point it out to him, he's like, nope, I'm good. Yeah. So that's cool. That's cool that you're doing that for me, and you're breaking that cycle and you're changing his life. And that's amazing. So, so today, you've had this kind of 5-year transformation, and the work continues, right? It's not like it ever stops. It keeps going. And I think
every day.
Oh, that's the challenge. So for everyone listening, it never ends. Like, you have to get your head around this. It never ends. You will never make it, right? You will always, if you're doing it right, you will always be working to improve yourself, better yourself, provide better opportunities for yourself and your family. It doesn't end. And like, the voices don't stop. The dark times don't stop. You got to keep working. So what today what helps you get through those rough days, darker days?
That's a complex question.
Is there wine involved? Like sometimes.
No, there's no alcohol involved.
That's funny.
And that's a big part of my life now is, I have to face things head on, and there is no, you can't escape it. You can bury it. You can stick it in a drawer. You can throw it in a closet, but it's still there, and it's not going anywhere until you pull it out and you look at it and you handle it.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable and it sucks, but it's the only option. Otherwise, next thing you know, all of your closets and all of your drawers and all of your whatever are filled with all this shit that you eventually have to get to.
Yeah.
So why not just deal with it as it comes rolling in?
Can you catch yourself when you're burying something? No.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. How did you, that's a skill set, I believe. Like, how'd you do that? How'd you get to that point where you can catch it?
It's just a habit you have to get into. Honestly, it's not even just, it doesn't even become like a constant awareness. It's a constant check-in with yourself.
Yeah.
Just every couple minutes, like, am I good right now? Is there anything that I'm holding? No. Okay, move on. And it comes just checklist that you go on, every 30 minutes throughout the day. Like, did anything bother me that I didn't address? No? Okay, we're good. And then if there is something, you address it.
I love what you just said. The two questions you ask yourself: am I good right now, and is there anything that I'm holding? Powerful, powerful questions. Because if the answer is yes to the holding one, then the third question has to happen: what am I holding, and then why am I holding, and what am I feeling, and why am I feeling? And I think the question I started asking myself, and this has been fairly recently, is what do I need right now?
Yeah.
And
I'm going to add a bonus question to that.
Okay.
Is it worth it?
Oh, interesting.
Is what I'm holding on to worth it?
Interesting.
Because I promise you 9 times out of 10, the answer is going to be no.
Yeah.
And then you can just throw that over your shoulder and move on real fast.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good too. The other one that I just thought of too is like, what can I control right now?
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10 is like nothing. I can't do anything about it right now. And then it's like, okay, then why am I hanging on to this? Like, yeah, no, that's good. That is it worth it? Man, that's really good. I'm going to add that to the question cycle here. So, tell me what's the why now? Like, I know you had mentioned before you were doing this for your son. What's your why? Is that still your why today?
Absolutely. So the reason that he will continue to be my why is because he is what matters the most. And I know a lot of people probably will disagree with this statement, but I believe that as a parent, as a mother, when you choose to become a parent, you are choosing to put yourself second. And again, I feel like a lot of people will disagree with that. However, they did not choose to be here. We chose to put them here. And that is a choice that comes with a lot of responsibility. And he has to be by why until he's old enough to, honestly, there is no old enough here because when my mom died, I was 23 and I still needed her. I still needed her to show me how to do things as a mom, how to do things as an adult. And I needed that. And so I don't think your kids ever stop becoming your why, at least in my life.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I would be one of those people that would challenge putting your children first in the sense of, so my why is about me, but the reasons for my why are my kids. And so if I'm good with me first and I'm okay with me first and I'm happy with me first, that's going to, by default, make things better for my kids, my relationship with them, the things I'm providing for them, all that, right? At least that's my
I'm going to have to agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Actually, because I will say, there are times when I say, I'm going to go to the gym, and he'll be like, well, why don't you hang out with me? Because I need this to be happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're right.
Yeah.
I guess they are hand in hand in my life.
Yeah, it's a balance, right? Like, yeah, sure, you're going to make sacrifices of your own, maybe priorities or whatever for them, but you also have to find the balance of like there has to be some sacrifices made the other direction too. Because I've seen too many times where people like, I live for my kids and they do everything for them, and it's like they completely sacrifice everything about themselves, their hopes, their dreams, the things that they want to do, and then all of a sudden their kids go off to college and they're like, what happened? Who am I? You know, that's when yeah. So I think
maybe the way I word it is incorrect.
No, I think you're good because I think you understand the balance between the two, right? You understand that there is a balance, right? And I think it's I challenge people when they say, so anytime I ask somebody about their why, and if they say it's something external to them, I challenge them on that because I'm like, are you sure you want to do that? Because it's like there's going to come a point where that external thing is going to take a different direction, and maybe you may not like it, or it just may change things, right? And then all of a sudden they're like, well, what have I been doing, right? But I think you've got the right balance. I think it sounds like you've got the right reasons for your why, and it's about your son, but you also know and you're conscious about, look, I guess I got to take care of me too, and that's super important. What so I'm going to kind of circle back this a little bit to 75 hard because I meant to ask this question at the beginning. What made you want to do 75 hard?
Oh gosh, so I hate this question because I did not know 75 hard existed until 3 days before I started.
Holy smokes! Okay.
So yes, my wife had been following Andy on Instagram and listening to his podcast for a while before she decided to share the information that he existed, which I still harbor a little bit of like, what the fuck? But, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So one day she works from home a lot. And so I got home from work early and I went to the office and she was like, hey, listen to this. And so I listened to the hour long, I think it's like 57 minutes, the podcast about 75 hard.
Yeah.
And, she's like, what do you think? I was like, I'm down.
Yeah.
Do it.
Let's go.
And so that's, I mean, I had no idea who he was, that there was even a community out there about this. I had no idea about any of it.
Yeah.
But I was all in. The moment I got done, I, hit stop on that podcast and I was like,
let's go. Yeah.
Let's go.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, that's pretty good. Like 3 days and then you jumped right into it. That's impressive. Like I had sat on that, I think, for maybe 4 or 5 months before I decided to go all into it. Yeah, I did.
Some of those Facebook groups on 75 Hard would rip you up.
Oh, I know. I get it. Like, and even now like I'm hesitating. I'm going into phase 3 and I'm like, okay, when do I start phase 3? Knowing when I have to start, because there's for folks that don't know what we're talking about, there's a specific time frame you have to do the last phase. It has to be 30 days from when you started 75 hard originally. And so like I'm like, okay, where's phase 3 and how does like this whole with stuff with Corona and like, oh yeah, I'm lagging. My excuses are lies right now because I am super like, oh, I don't know if I want to do phase 3 quite yet. So I just lost my train of thought. Anyway, so I'll post the episode with Andy where he talks about 75 hard. It is something that will, again, I said at the beginning, completely change your life, take over your life in crazy ways. Actually, let me ask you this: like, so you were doing 75 hard with your wife, so your family was kind of in it, like you guys were all in. Yeah, that's awesome. Did anybody around you was like, what the hell are you doing?
Oh yeah. So my favorite moment during this was when I was at work one day and I was a manager at a gym. Yeah. And the GM there said, is this the healthiest thing for you to be doing right now? And I was so perplexed by this man who is super into fitness, has been in the gym industry, the fitness industry for years. And he was trying to question whether or not I was taking care of myself properly during 75 hard.
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I said, if getting sunshine for 45 minutes a day and getting another workout in for 45 minutes a day and keeping myself accountable with my diet and drinking a gallon of water and reading is detrimental to my health, then I've been going about life all wrong.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, it's brutal though. Like, I know I definitely wasn't sleeping as much because I had to get up earlier to get both workouts done in the morning and stuff. Yeah, you lose so much sleep during this time. Yeah. Yeah, you lose so much sleep. But I think the thing is, it's the mental part of it. Like, when you look at the checklist, there's so much physical pieces of it. Yeah, you have to work out twice a day. You know, you have to follow a strict diet, all this other stuff. But it's the mental. Like, oh man, I can't even explain what this does for you mentally. Let me ask you this. So when you got to my 75 hard, like the first 7 days, you're like, okay, cool, this is good. I'm good. Like, I can do this. Yeah. Usually right around day 10 to 12, you're like, what in the F am I doing? Day 10 to 15, you're like questioning life. Like, why am I doing this? Because all the initial excitement goes away.
Yeah.
What happened for you right around day 20, 21? I want to see if you had the same experience I did. Can you remember around day 20 to 21? Like, what was your mindset like?
So actually, that was when a lot of my son's Cub Scout meetings were like, they were back to back to back.
Yeah.
It felt like, at least, because my days kind of rolled into each other. I think they do when you're in 75 hard.
Yeah.
And I remember I was at one of his meetings and it was at 8 o'clock at night and I knew I had to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, oh my God, what is happening to my life right now?
Yeah.
And my husband was there and he looked at me and Abby, my wife. He looked at us and he was like, I can't believe you guys are even here right now. I was like, I can't either.
Yeah, right around day 20, I started judging everybody around me. Anytime I would hear anybody say, oh, I don't have time to do something, I'm like, what do you mean you don't have time? Of course you've got time.
Oh, yeah.
You can make the time. If it's like, oh, I got so judgmental, so judgmental of everybody. Mm-hmm. And then day 30, it's like you're in the grind. Like, so usually, like by day 30, you're completely unstoppable. You know, all your excuses were always lies. And like, you're just, okay, now it's time to grind it out. Like, we're just going to get it done. It was so crazy. Like the shifts in all the minds and everything.
Yeah. Did you notice that my progress pictures looked a little less angry as I went on?
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, you were super.
They started out real angry.
Yeah. And then towards the end, I do remember that at the end, you had like the biggest smiles in your pictures. Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah. It was really, really cool.
3 a.m. and there I was.
Yeah. And I'm like, how is she doing it? Because like my 3 a.m. sucks. Oh, and the worst, like, I don't know if you had to travel. Did you travel at all during 75 hard?
No.
Oh, I had to travel a few times and it sucked. It was like the worst. Like, you know, you're in a different city and you're like, your routine's all messed up and like the food is different. Like, you got to make sure you're not cheating on anything. And it's like, traveling. And in fact, I ended 75 hard traveling. Like, my whole last week I was traveling and it was just like, man, this is crazy. All right.
I did have to host a couple events though. That made it really rough.
Oh, yeah.
They both involved alcohol. And I was the one pouring it. And I'm like, man, I could really use a glass of wine right now.
I remember that you guys were doing like some yoga or something and you were like a wine yoga thing, right? Yeah. I'm like, oh, this guy's just suck for her.
Yeah. Because I do enjoy wine.
Yeah.
I've never stopped liking it.
Yeah.
I may only drink it 2 or 3 times a year, but man, I like it.
That's awesome. All right, Emily, where can people find you?
So my Instagram is fitness_nutrition_mama, spelled MOMMA. And that's me.
Okay. Awesome. We'll be sure to post a link, or we'll have the link in the post for this show. All right. Last question. What's the legacy you want to leave on the world?
The legacy I want to leave is the woman who rescued as many animals as she could and created the husband that every person would want to have with her son, because I want him to be the man that this world deserves. That is what I want to leave behind.
That is really, really interesting. Creating the husband everyone wants to have because of the lessons you taught him and the tools you're giving him. That's
And
awesome.
I want him to carry that forward.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. That's fantastic. Emily, thank you so much for being on the show. It was such a pleasure talking to you and finally catching up with
Thank
you in
you for
person.
having me.
Absolutely. If you want to check out our website, please visit stormchamp.com. There we have links to all of our social media and our past episodes. Emily, once again, thank you so much.